Hello, everyone. Today I have the pleasure to interview our 10th guest for 2024, Autumn DiScala. Autumn is empathetic, encouraging, confident, and kind. She aims to achieve incredible results in all she does. This passion has arisen from seeing how God has led and moved in her own life in so many challenging and incredible ways. Often, all she had to go on to pursue what God has placed on her heart is faith that He will work it out, as well as support from her loved ones. And that's exactly what she wants to be for other women. The support that they need to pursue their God sized dreams that He's calling them to chase, to get past the points in which they feel stuck so they can pursue their dreams fully. She's also passionate about finding the Lord's purpose for you in all you do, whether that will be in your families, your hobbies, your passions and interests, as well as in your career. Autumn is also a contributor for Brains Magazine. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, you're good.
And I will share the link at the end of the video. Autumn will share a little bit about her background, and then she will go on and discussing the topic for today, which is changing your eating habits to prevent diabetes. And with this being said, we welcome Autumn to Be an Encourager podcast. And my first question to you is if you can share a little bit about your background and how did you become a Christian, and how and when did you feel the need that you needed to change and why?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really grateful that I get to be here. I'm excited to be on this podcast and share a little bit of my knowledge and my experience with everybody here. So thank you, listeners. But yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm a certified health and life coach, but I also have a background in different church experiences. I have a master's in divinity, I have an undergrad in apologetics, basically. So I have a kind of like diverse profile.
Mhm.
But I also have a lot of certification in different holistic health spheres. So it's a lot that I like to integrate together as part of my coaching, as part of my nutrition experience to share with my clients, to also comprehensively aid those that I get to serve. But as far as how I became a Christian, so I actually became a Christian when I was 13. I went through a pretty messy family experience where I needed to be removed from my father's household. So my mother ended up being one of my sole providers for a while. But through that year-long process of court and legal matters is when I found the Lord really authentically. He came to me very personally, interacted with me in a really vulnerable place that I was in my life. And while like I probably wouldn't have named it then, I definitely was depressed and was really experiencing a lot of emotions that I didn't know what to do with. Again, 13, there's not really a whole lot you can do, like knowing what to do with what. But God was really kind to me and present in the midst of all of that. And through college and some overseas work that I've done and all the passion that I have for health and natural healing, I really am grateful to be able to say that like the Lord's led me on this path to being where I am now to help a lot of women in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you for sharing your testimony. And can you share a little bit about what led you to start your business? I think you spoke a little bit about that as a health life coach and also the NRT practitioner. And
Mhm.
also, if you can explain what is an NRT practitioner and what they do, and if you
Yeah.
can share ways that you help your clients as a health life coach.
Yeah, these are great questions. So, after I got my master's degree, so master's in divinity, like I mentioned, I actually temporarily moved to Japan to do missions in Tokyo. So while I was there, I was starting to feel the pull from the Lord to pursue a career that could help others with their lives and physical health. So that dual aspect there. So I pursued, after I moved back to the States, I pursued getting certified as a coach through the opportunities that I was able to interact with. But to go over NRT, it stands for Nutrition Response Testing. It's actually a non-invasive muscle testing technique. I'm not sure if you're familiar with muscle testing.
No, I never heard of
Yeah.
that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's in the holistic health department, but basically it's like if you were to use electrodes to hook up to the body and like see on a monitor on an energetic level what organs are in need of some support and things like that. It does it through touch, basically. So I'm not actively practicing in a clinic with NRT right now, but I do have all that knowledge and experience. And actually, I'm a third generation practitioner. So my grandma started our own family business, and mom took it over, and then I got certified after that. But it's really cool to be able to use what I've learned through holistic healing and nutrition as a health and life coach now, because my goal is to
Mhm.
help women overcome places they feel stuck, incapable, scattered, kind of what you named in that intro, which I'm so grateful you shared that. Uh, my goal is to help them as they might feel unable to pursue the dreams God's placed in their hearts or the lives they feel they're meant to live, whether it be in a life or a health role. So my agreement that I make to all of my clients is to support and encourage all of them in the ways they need me to, providing them with clear action steps so they can make the changes they want to make in their lives, overcoming the challenges in their mindset or in the seasons of transition. And through this, I like fully believe that every woman that I work with can really like make the steps they want to make and choose the lives they want to live. So I am grateful that I have really great resources, really great information that's curated for my clients to help guide our sessions. Because each program that I do is there might be like a skeleton structure of like you're signing up for a career, you're signing up for a health program, but it really is curated for each person specifically based off of what comes up in our sessions.
That's a very interesting concept. I totally agree that the health is really important also to work, as the emotional health is also very important to
Ah,
work on. So all that, it's like tiers that you have to, if you want to do something in life, you have a dream, sometimes you have to address all these things prior to going full force in your dreams. So I am very interested in that. So the topic for today is changing your eating habits to prevent diabetes. So according to the CDC, 97.6 million people aged 18 and over have prediabetes. And this is 38% of the adult US population and 27.2 million aged 65 and older. That's
mhm.
48.8% that have prediabetes. And these statistics are quite high, and it's important to reach the community on how to prevent and manage diabetes. So there are many ways to tackle prediabetes and also to manage it so that it doesn't become a full-blown diagnosis of diabetes. Can you explain in detail what will be the first step that the person will need to take towards prevention of diabetes, and why is it important to prevent it, and how? And I'm also going to include the next question that goes because I think they
Oh yeah.
relate to each other. So for someone who has recently been diagnosed as a borderline diabetic, what changes do you recommend for them to implement right away? And how can they determine and know if they're making any progress? And I know that's quite a lot, but they all like both connect.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking for a good amount of time here.
It's all yours.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean these are excellent questions. Diabetes is like a growing health crisis in America specifically. But I think the main things that we're talking about when we talk about prediabetes, diabetes, is we're monitoring blood sugar, we're monitoring insulin levels, we're talking about sugar, high amounts of sugar, high amounts of carbs. So nutrition is very crucial. It's so important. So like nutrition is a huge thing. Like if someone's feeling like they're pre-diabetic or they've been told they're pre-diabetic or they're just wanting to get ahead of the curve now, the biggest thing they could do is stop eating artificial sugars, really high processed wheats, because cleaning out the diet will bring astronomical leaps of progress in their healing journey, finding additional guidance through whether it be like someone like me who's a nutrition response testing practitioner or a health coach, as well as seeing their medical professionals will help them really get ahead of this. But I want to talk for a second about the blood sugar roller coaster, and I actually have a handout. I might be able to send it to you to put in the show notes or something.
That'll be great.
Yeah, but so there's this concept called the blood sugar roller coaster, basically. So
Mhm.
if you look at on a graph, which hopefully we'll have this in the notes then, but there's a point where when we eat food, there's a healthy blood sugar range of where our blood sugar stays constant. But when we eat, our blood sugar is able to stay like it either like spikes really high if we have something super sugary, or if we have like a good amount of protein, a well-balanced meal, it'll stay within optimal range because that's what we need to be in. Now, if we eat something that's highly sugary, highly processed, or if we're not eating enough, our blood sugar either drops too low or goes too high and then crashes and burns. So, being able to eat well balanced meals will help us optimally stay in the ranges we need to be in so that we can balance our blood sugar so we can have proper amounts of energy, so we can maintain our emotions, and so we can get ahead of this pre-diabetic concern, right? So
Mhm.
with this, what's really important is, like I said, with the nutrition aspect, is starting now. Like, granted, it does take time, and I think there needs to be grace for ourselves in not going completely cold turkey off of everything right away, right? Like, it's really hard to
Mhm.
just jump full force into something. Very few people are able to sustain that. Uh, if that's like their initial pushes, let's just clear out everything in the kitchen. We're throwing out all the garbage. We're starting fresh. I'm only eating celery. Like that's a little hard for most people to do.
Yes,
Right?
yes, I agree with
Right.
that.
But we have to keep in mind, like, what we're fueling our bodies with is what's going to help us function, help us heal uh, in our bodies, right? So if we're feeding our bodies all this processed sugar, bad fats, like super, super starchy wheats and things like that, how successful do we think our bodies are going to be in healing, right? So
Mhm.
particularly with diabetes and pre-diabetes, choosing those foods that nourish our body is really crucial. Granted, this comes with recognizing that everyone's body is different. So foods we respond to, what helps us actually feel well fed is also going to be a variable, whether some of us can eat dairy, some can't, or same thing with gluten, same thing with different kinds of meats and whatnot as well. There are millions of different diet plans to choose from, but we have to be careful and really monitor which ones actually work for us and which ones don't. It's sort of like a trial and error game for a while at
Mhm.
first. But what I always recommend to people is choosing high quality food. So not necessarily focusing on carb counting, but focusing on the nutrient dense foods. So instead of just having like, oh, like this is 200 calories, perfect. I'd rather have someone I'm nutritionally recommending things to choose like high quality bone broth or using like sourdough. There's different things that like are more nutrient dense than just being like, oh, this
Mhm.
is a slice of bread that's only like, 150 calories. That's perfect. It's like, yeah, but what else is in that bread? There's sugar in there. There's like wheat your body doesn't respond well to. So I'm always bigger on quality over calories or quantity, or specifically protein, especially with pre-diabetic and diabetic cases. Making sure we have enough protein in our diets is very, 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 very important to help with that blood sugar curve. But
Mhm.
also, when we have the protein that's keeping us fueled longer, we're not going to want the sugar, we're not going to want the grains as much because we are fuller. I think I answered all those questions there for you.
Yes, yes. And from what I heard you say, it's important to make those changes gradually as
Mhm.
opposed to just go full force and change your diet and go into those crashing diets that I see a lot of people starting and then they go back to the same cycles. So making those healthy changes in their lifestyle is very important.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
exactly, exactly. And this is something I really stress with my coaching clients is like we'll make tiny action steps, we'll make plans that will get us to those bigger goals. So if we want to be gluten-free completely, great. Well, let's just start with 1 day a week and let's work our way off
mhm,
of this and this meal or this day and this many days. And the next time we talk about it, maybe now we can do the whole week, a month. There's the different things where you
mhm.
have to put slow steps in place so that you actually can achieve the goals you want to achieve.
That sounds great. So, why is it important, along with the medical recommendations, implementing an exercise routine to also change those negative eating habits? And why changing the mindset of how you look at food can help you make those necessary changes? And can you give us an example of some negative eating habits? Because, maybe the viewers are not aware or maybe they don't know what is a negative eating habit. And I think we all have them and also the relationship with food because some people emotionally eat, so we want to explain that to them because I believe that we're all guilty sometimes of
Mhm.
negative eating patterns,
Same.
so if you
Yeah,
can
no, that's
elaborate on that.
yeah. Oh, I love what you named that. I feel like is, in my opinion, not talked about enough because I
Hmm.
fully believe, and I feel like you would believe this as well, that we are wholly integrated beings. So how
Yes.
we feel emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, it's all going to affect each other. This is an element I talk a lot about in my coaching programs. But while we have been talking about, yeah, let's cut out the foods that aren't great for us, that will affect us physically. It'll
Hmm.
also help us not feel mentally sluggish. But when we cut out those foods and we also focus on exercise, we focus on feeling better emotionally on who we are too, it will help us feel more energized, think clear, not react to things the way we don't want to react to them. There's so
Mhm.
many aspects to this that really play into each other. And I'd love to take a second just to be sensitive to those who may have a history of disordered eating or
Oh,
some sort
yes.
of like negative reaction
Mhm.
to talking even about diets and food and counting
Mhm.
calories and things like that as well. I've had clients who come from that and just want to say like it is possible to heal through it and to recover, but also like
Mhm.
you're seen, you're loved, and like if you're not there yet,
Yes.
that's okay too. Like there's definitely grace for all of that.
Mhm.
Um, so I wanted to acknowledge that first. But generally, the bulk of the women that I work with who wrestle with negative thoughts around eating are usually just super busy, stressed out, and they're just grabbing food in a time crunch because they don't have the food prepared, or
Mhm.
they don't know what to
Mhm.
really like, to grab for because they only have, oh, I have 5 minutes, I have to eat something really fast, so I'm gonna panic, I'm gonna snap at somebody. That's usually the mental state that like women come to me in. So um which granted I've been there too. I totally understand it.
I've been
And
there too.
yeah, it's tough sometimes,
It is.
like
Mhm.
we are in a hurry. We have families to take care of,
Mhm.
or people to look out for, or jobs to get to. And so what we reach for is the bag of chips in the closet. Or, oh, I have to feed my child, so here's this baby food. That's what I'm going to eat for a meal. Like there's different things I've heard women experience,
Mhm.
but it's not necessarily like a way. Like, there are those who use it as like a coping mechanism, right? Where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm stressed, I'm sad. This comfort food will help me feel better. Um, because there's like a longing for something more, right? So there definitely
Mhm.
is an element as well. But generally, what I see is it's like a stressed state of being and just grabbing something quick and easy. Um, so I always recommend that the best thing we can do is to prepare in advance for these situations, whether it's making sure we buy the foods that are actually good for us and having like cut vegetables on hand, or like a balanced snack of like apples and almond butter, or there's like different things we can do to like reach for things that are more nourishing rather than just like things that are quick. We have to make the nourishing things quick for us, right?
Mhm.
Whether that's cutting time into our schedules to prepare those things or buying things already pre-prepared. What we need is things that nourish us that we can function better and serve those we really care about. We have to
Mhm.
view ourselves also as someone who needs that tender care. That's something else I really stress as well. Like I have one client who she had a really hard time taking care of herself or seeing herself as someone worth taking care of, like, because she had family to take care of, things to do, business to run, and just didn't see the necessity in making time to eat the foods that were good for her, create the space in her schedule to do that. But we had to really work on reframing herself as someone else who also needs nourishing care. And it was really cool to see her kind of voice seeing herself as, oh, I'm kind of like a newborn baby, like that needs care and special
Mhm.
attention as well. Like I
Mhm.
need to rest and take bubble baths, and then also I need to make sure I'm eating so many foods every day. And it was neat to watch that progress and to see how progressively she was able to view herself as more important than what she did.
That's a great example you gave. I also like the example that you gave about changing the making those lifestyle changes. Like
Mhm.
instead of going to for the unhealthy snacks, to have healthy snacks in place of. And normally people keep maybe a candy dish or something like that, maybe substitute that candy dish with some healthy snacks.
Yeah.
That's one way I think, right?
Mhm. It's a great
So I like
example.
that example you gave. How can a person evaluate their eating habits? And is it important to track your food in order to learn more about your eating habits? And why do we end up eating everything that we know we should not eat? And is this a true statement that habits affect our relationship with food? And is there such a thing as emotional eating? Like you mentioned before, we
Mhm.
have some, I would say ice cream is fine.
Okay,
Yes,
fair.
comfort food. We have some comfort food that we go for, but sometimes it's not so healthy for us. Is it
Mhm.
a true statement that habits affect our relationship with food? And if there's such a thing, I think I repeated that, the emotional eating.
Oh,
Is
that's
so, can you explain how a person um, can tell if they are emotional eating? Because sometimes I believe some people don't really realize that they're emotional eating.
yeah.
Can you
Yeah, I would
explain?
completely agree. Like these are great questions. I usually use like a food log or a way to track food as part of my health coaching.
Mhm.
But I also caution like if this is a trigger again for someone who comes from like a disordered eating experience, that is like okay that we don't do that, right? But I do think that food logs, tracking food can be really helpful for discovering trends and patterns, and understanding what makes us feel good and doesn't. We notice like the reactions we have around foods when we eat them when we're actually writing it down or tracking it in an app or something. But if we don't do that, it's a lot harder for most of us to really understand what makes us feel what way. So I usually recommend tracking. I actually use an app called Cronometer. It's really helpful. There's also MyFitnessPal. They're pretty like great resources for tracking. Um, but yeah, I think we talked a little bit about the emotional eating aspect, and I think it does come down to convenience and picking what's like super easy when we're really busy. But I do think there is an element also of, oh, I'm feeling a certain way, so I naturally am reaching for this thing. And granted, again, that could be something that needs to be talked about with a therapist or whatnot as well. But I think like we can acknowledge that when it becomes second nature to reach for something as a support system, right? So coming from a Christian perspective, when we're feeling really anxious, stressed, depressed, we're feeling like we're missing something and we're reaching for something else that is physical material that is a comfort, right? That should be a wake up call for us. Like, oh, I'm longing for this thing to fill this void when I really should be turning to the Lord. And I should be turning
Yes.
to those that I really can trust and find community and support in. And that true love from God that's going to fill that empty space. It's going to fill that like longing in my heart. And that is always to me like a good first sign that there's something else going on, right? But another example, I mean, this isn't food, but I mean, I guess kind of it is, but we know people who turn to alcohol when they like are wanting something to like fill a void. The same thing can happen with food. It can happen with popcorn. It can happen with ice cream, even though ice cream is delicious and stuff,
Yeah.
Now, is it every time? No, obviously not. But like if it's something that becomes like a not a crutch, but like something that we lean on a little too much, that should be like a way for us to be aware of that more.
I'm glad that the way that you explain it. And so I mentioned ice cream is my comfort food, but I don't eat it every day.
Good for
You
you.
know, I just wanted to let you know.
I didn't think you did.
I understand that many medical professionals and nutritionists recommend intermittent fasting. Can you explain how does intermittent fasting work in preventing the onset of diabetes? And do you recommend intermittent fasting? If so, why? And if not, why? Also, how does fasting help the body stay healthy? So how does it really help the body stay healthy? What is your opinion on that and elaborate?
Yeah, yes. So again, I'm not like a medical doctor. So I definitely have like the holistic background. I have the nutrition background, all the health things. I always like to preface with that. But yeah, typically intermittent fasting is really recommended by a lot of health professionals. I usually, truly, transparently, am very hesitant to recommend it, predominantly because of the cases that I work with are women who do come from disordered eating, or there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed first, but there have been a lot of benefits with it as well. I also am hesitant because from my own experience and from what I've seen, the most beneficial way to intermittent fast is actually fast dinner, not breakfast. So when people fast breakfast, they're actually cutting out a really big opportunity to get energy for the day, to process foods. And then when we eat dinner instead of breakfast, well, yeah, we eat dinner instead of breakfast. Now we're getting too much food in the evening that's going to be sitting and getting rancid in our stomach while we sleep because we don't digest things while we sleep. So there's that is typically what intermittent fasting looks like in diet culture. However, if we do have full meals for breakfast and lunch and then fast dinner, which is ideally supposed to be our smallest meal anyway, and earlier in the day, then it can be really beneficial health-wise. But with this, intermittent fasting is usually really helpful, typically what people have found for burning fat, cellular repair. It's been shown to reduce insulin resistance, which lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes, what we've been talking about. It reduces inflammation. There's a lot of benefits that can come out of it if it's done properly. So I always like to say that as well. But with intermittent fasting, it puts your body in um, a state where you're actually burning fats instead of sugar, because our first thing that we start burning in our bodies when we eat is sugar. The sugars that come from dairy, grain, carbohydrates, vegetables, things like that. Um, But when we skip a meal, we don't have those instant sugars or the sugars that are stored in our gut system to burn. We have what's left is fat. And that is also something our body can use to burn for energy. So that's kind of where this idea of intermittent fasting comes from. There's a whole lot that can be said about it, but on the surface level, that's
Mhm.
generally what I've seen. I think it can be really helpful. I think it can do a lot of good. I also think it depends on each person and their body and their nutrition needs as well. So I definitely think it should be done under the guidance of a health professional and shouldn't just be done lightly, loosely, unless like someone's used to it for a really long time. And prolonged fasting, I think, can be kind of iffy as well. So I do like it. I do think it's a good thing. I do think it's something that needs to be really considered before doing it.
Thank you for the great explanation. It makes a lot of sense. And like you said, you recommend that for anyone that has other issues, not, it's not recommendable for them, but for someone that's under the doctor's care, that if the doctor recommends it, then it sounds like it may be working for that person.
Yeah.
So thank you, the way that you clarify that. So as a role model and Christian mentor, how do you want to encourage all the listeners of this podcast on this day who are struggling with their eating habits, pre-diabetes, diabetes, or have a negative relationship with food? Can you share a word of encouragement for the listeners so that they can stay encouraged, not only making healthier lifestyle changes, but also in their walk with God? And so I leave it up to you. Take as much
Okay.
time as you want with this one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I am grateful for the opportunity to share a smidgen of my knowledge and like my experience. And I love encouraging people, so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. But like I think what's really coming to my mind in this moment is reminding the listeners that like it is a process. It does take
Mhm,
time. It is not a quick and easy fix to get our nutrition in order, to get our lifestyles in order, to immediately be perfect at it all, right? There's still things that I'm working on. I've been doing this for a really long
mhm,
time. Like there's always going to be something we want to be better or improve upon health wise. That shouldn't discourage us from pursuing a healthier lifestyle, but it should be something that gives us grace for ourselves that we're not perfect, right? So start today with the
mhm,
nutrition you want to have, but give yourself grace and be patient with yourself as you learn new things because once you dive into the nutrition world, there's
mhm,
always something new that is going to make you feel like you don't know enough, honestly. So,
mhm,
um, but it's something worth diving into. And, you know, taking care of your body now will only help you it will only help you in the long run. Something that, I like to say is we can either pay for medical bills later or we can pay for really good nutrition now. Those are like we're gonna be putting money out regardless. So it just depends on like what we want to put that money towards, right?
mhm,
But I also like to remind people that we're not alone in this process as well.
mhm,
So we have people who are, in therapy, in nutrition. Like I'm a life and health coach. We have people like
mhm,
that who've been important to us. We also have our communities that are there for us to support us and to walk with us through all of the things that we're experiencing. But
mhm.
more importantly than all of that, we have God who's with us in every season of life and who is there to be our comforter and our guide and our shepherd. So we are not alone.
Wonderful. Thank you for such a great, encouraging words. I thank you for sharing all of your expertise today with the listeners. And I can wait to upload this and share it with everyone. If you
Yes,
can
thank you so much
send
for having
me,
me.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You mentioned an app that you use, and also I
Oh yeah,
use the Fitness Pal, so that I think is a good one too.
perfect.
Because I want to put it at the end of the video, giving them some resources that they can also tap into. So that way, and also your information I have. So I'll add that at the end of the video. Okay. So
Great. And
God
I'll send
bless.
you that blood sugar balancing
Oh
chart.
yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
no
So
problem.
it was a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you
Pleasure to be
so
here. Thank you
much.
for having me.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.